Hello, everyone. This is your time to disconnect from the outside world and join me on a journey through this emotional story. So, relax, focus on the sound of my voice, and let the story envelop you, taking you away from all the stresses of the day. The wail of a newborn echoed through the bustling hospital corridor, slicing through the cacophony of a record-breaking birthday. 14 souls had entered the world that day, each greeted by beaming faces and weary, joyous tears. Yet, in the corner of the bustling neonatal ward, lay a quiet crib where lay Michael, his first cries met not by the cooing of an adoring family, but by the sterile chill of the hospital air. Sophia, her nurse's scrubs bearing the stains of the day's labor, paused at the threshold of the nursery. Her eyes, so used to scanning rooms with clinical detachment, found themselves drawn to the infant whose arrival seemed marked more by absence than celebration. As she approached the crib, her footsteps felt unusually heavy, each echo a stark reminder of the tiny being's solitude. Lifting Michael into her arms, Sophia felt an unexpected tremor in her heart, a nurse seasoned by countless births, yet undone by the weight of this fragile life against her chest. Michael's skin was soft and warm, his tiny fingers grasping aimlessly in the air, reaching for comfort not yet provided. The room fell away, the sounds of the hospital fading into a distant hum, as Sophia looked into his searching eyes. There was an understanding in that gaze, a silent plea that seemed to tug at the very fibers of her being. "This isn't how your story should begin," she whispered to him, her voice a soft cocoon in the cold nursery. The decision that had been forming, unbidden, in the back of her mind solidified with the weight of certainty. Sophia knew that her life, meticulously planned, comfortably predictable, was about to change. In that moment, with Michael's head resting against her heartbeat, she promised not only to care for him but to love him, to fill the void left by those who had brought him into this world and then vanished. It was a promise that felt like destiny, heavy with the weight of a future unwritten but suddenly, overwhelmingly possible. In the sterile whiteness of the neonatal ward, amid the persistent beeps and soft rustlings of a bustling hospital, a single crib lay peculiarly silent. Here, beneath a thin blue blanket, Michael slept, a beacon of innocence oblivious to the turmoil of his birth. Sophia's gaze fixed upon him, a swell of unspoken promises brewing in her chest. This tiny life, already so fragile and fraught with uncertainty, seemed to pull at the deepest fibers of her being, awakening a fierce protectiveness she had never known. She learned of his abandonment on a rain-soaked Tuesday. The nurses whispered about the baby boy whose parents had disappeared into the night, leaving behind nothing but a hastily signed form and a bundle of unworn clothes. As Sophia watched over him, each labored breath the baby took seemed to echo the crushing silence left by his parents' sudden departure. Her heart ached as she touched his small hand, her fingers tracing the delicate lines of his palm, a silent vow forming with each tender stroke. Sophia was a practical woman, hardened by years of clinical routines and sudden emergencies. Yet, something about Michael crumbled her well-built defenses. Maybe it was the way his quietness filled the space around him, or perhaps it was his need for someone to claim him as their own. That night, as she cradled him, the fluorescent lights hummed softly above, casting long shadows across the floor. The decision that had been forming in the back of her mind solidified with each rhythmic pat she gave to soothe the restless child. "He might never know why they left him," she murmured into the dimness, "but I can make sure he knows why I stayed." The words, though barely spoken, seemed to reverberate around the room, sealing her resolve. Tomorrow, she would begin the process to make him hers. As she placed Michael back into his crib, her whisper lingered in the air, "It might just be you and me against the world, but I promise, you will never have to face it alone." The keys in Sophia's hand trembled slightly as she stood at the threshold of her once solitary home, now transformed into a sanctuary brimming with anticipation. This was the moment she had been envisioning since the first day she cradled Michael in her arms, a space of their own, a world of infinite possibilities and unspoken promises. Inside, The house was quiet, but every corner was touched by preparations for Michael. As Sophia stepped in, the soft patter of her footsteps echoed through the hall, marking the beginning of a new chapter. She paused by Michael's room, where the walls were freshly painted in a soothing shade of blue. A crib assembled with meticulous care stood waiting, the mobile above it poised to spin tales of the sea and sky. On the shelf, children's books filled with adventures and dreams awaited their nightly readings, their spines uncreased and eager for the touch of small, curious hands. Sophia's heart swelled as she envisioned Michael there, growing up surrounded by love and laughter. Yet, beneath the surface of her excitement, there was a tangible thread of fear, a silent whisper questioning her readiness to fill the role of both mother and protector. Could she really provide Michael with all he needed? The weight of her decision pressed down on her, a tender yet terrifying burden. She sank down beside the crib, her hands running over the soft, knitted blanket her own adoptive mother had made for her when she was a child. The fabric, though worn, carried the warmth and safety of her childhood, a legacy she longed to pass on to Michael. With a deep, steadying breath, Sophia whispered into the quiet room, her voice both shaky and sure, "You're home now, Michael. And no matter what comes, we'll face it together. You are loved, deeply and unconditionally." As the evening light faded, casting gentle shadows across the room, Sophia's resolve hardened. She would be everything Michael needed and more. This was more than a house, it was a home, a haven they would build together, one filled with stories yet to be written and love that would never end. The taunt cut through the schoolyard clamor like a knife. "Hey, adopted kid." Michael's small shoulders tensed under his backpack as he braced for the laughter that never seemed to fade, echoing louder with each heartbeat. At home, Sophia's embrace was a sanctuary, a harbor against the cruel seas of childhood jeers and whispered secrets. But here, surrounded by jeering faces, he felt adrift. Every afternoon, as the school bell tolled the end of another day of battle, Michael would shuffle home, his eyes downcast. The moment he crossed the threshold, Sophia was there, her arms wide and welcoming. The ritual was always the same, a tight hug, a warm cookie, and a listening ear. As he recounted the day's cruelties, Sophia's heart ached with a pang only a mother's heart could feel. "It's not fair, Mom," Michael sniffled one rainy Thursday, the drops mirroring his own. "Why don't I have a real mom and dad like everyone else?" Sophia knelt to meet his gaze, her eyes moist with unshed tears. "My dear boy," she began, her voice soft yet steady, "sometimes families happen in the most unexpected ways. Mine did, too. I wasn't born into it, I was chosen, like you, chosen to be loved as fiercely and fully as any child ever was." She brushed a curl from his forehead, her touch gentle. "And if I could choose 1,000 times, it would always be you." As Michael looked into Sophia's eyes, he saw not just the reflected pain of his own uncertainties, but also the boundless love that had colored his world since the day she had whispered fiercely, "It might just be you and me against the world." The warmth of her words slowly melted the icy shards of doubt lodged in his young heart. In Sophia's steadfast presence, Michael found not just solace, but a wellspring of strength. Together, they were crafting a narrative not of solitude, but of unity, a testament to the unyielding bond they shared, sculpted by choice rather than chance. In the quiet of the night, as the world lay sleeping, Sophia found herself staring at the sleeping form of Michael, his chest rising and falling with each innocent breath. Her heart was a battleground of fear and love, weighted by the secret she harbored, his unknown origins. As Michael grew older, his innocent questions about where he came from became more frequent, and the answers Sophia provided felt increasingly hollow. Each question was a gentle stab to her heart, reminding her of the truth she had hidden behind a veil of well-intentioned lies. Driven by a love too deep to quantify, Sophia made a decision that would change everything. Under the cover of anonymity, she began to delve into Michael's past with a mix of dread and hope. Her hands trembled as she sifted through old hospital records and tracked down former staff who might remember the day Michael was left behind. Each step forward felt like a step into the unknown, where the potential for pain was great, but the need for truth was greater. It was a particularly rainy afternoon when Sophia's search led her to an old, faded emergency contact form tucked away in the deepest corner of the hospital's archive. The name Margaret Collins was written in hurried, blurred ink, possibly a grandmother, the form suggested. Sophia's heart raced as she dialed the number, her voice quivering as she asked the stranger on the line if she knew a child named Michael. The pause before the answer was brief, but to Sophia, it felt like an eternity. When Margaret finally responded, her voice cracked with age and a sorrow that echoed Sophia's own. "Yes," she whispered, "I wondered if this day would ever come." In that moment, Sophia felt a rush of conflicting emotions. Relief that she was finally uncovering the truth, dread of what that truth might entail, and a profound sorrow for the years lost between Michael and his biological family. Her quest for answers was no longer just for Michael, it had become her own pilgrimage toward redemption and closure. In the dim light of the fading afternoon, Sophia's hands trembled as she clutched the old, handwritten note that had led her to Margaret Collins' doorstep. Every stroke of the pen carried a weight, a potential connection to Michael's hidden past. Taking a deep breath, she raised her hand to knock, the sound echoing like a drumbeat against the quiet of the neighborhood. Margaret answered the door, her eyes a mirror of the years and wisdom that lined her face. She carried the aura of countless stories, perhaps none as poignant as the one about to unfold. Sophia introduced herself, her voice barely a whisper, choked by the gravity of what this meeting meant. As she explained why she was there, Margaret's expression shifted from curiosity to a dawning realization, the impact of the moment sinking into both their hearts. Inside, the house smelled faintly of lavender and old books, a comforting scent that did little to calm Sophia's racing heart. They sat across from each other, two strangers connected by a child neither had expected to bring them together. Sophia gently began to recount Michael's story, each detail punctuated by the silent tension that filled the room. Tears welled up in Margaret's eyes as she absorbed the tale of the boy who carried part of her bloodline. Her hand trembled as she reached for a photograph on the mantelpiece, passing it to Sophia. It was a picture of a young woman, radiant and smiling, unmistakably Michael's mother. "My daughter, Elise," Margaret breathed, her voice breaking. "She disappeared shortly after he was born. We thought we'd lost her forever." The room was thick with emotion as the two women shared their grief and hope. Sophia felt a kinship, a shared pain with Margaret, as they both loved a boy who was a piece of their soul yet so much a mystery. They cried together, for the years lost and the connections just beginning to form, a fragile thread weaving through their lives, promising new beginnings even as it acknowledged painful pasts. In a heartbeat, Sophia's world tilted on its axis. The news arrived like a storm, sudden and overwhelming. There, in the pale light of the hospital conference room, sat two sets of parents, one holding the threads of Sophia's universe, the other, strangers, yet inexplicably intertwined with her fate and Michael's. Their faces etched with urgency, they carried a tale so stark, so fraught with desperate need, that it pierced the core of Sophia's heart. Michael, the boy she had raised, loved, and called her own, was not her biological son. The revelation spilled from the lips of a tearful mother, who explained how a frantic search for a genetic match for their critically ill son led them to discover the hospital's unthinkable error. Tyler, her real son, had been switched with Michael at birth. Sophia's gaze swept over Michael, whose small hand gripped hers with innocent trust. How could she possibly explain to him that the mother he knew might not be his in the eyes of the world? That the daily rhythms of bedtime stories, park visits, and quiet dinners were based on a misplaced identity? And yet, as the truth hung heavy between them, it was the unspoken words that seemed to suffocate her the most. The room grew thick with emotion as Tyler's father spoke of his son's dire condition. "We don't expect anything," he choked out, his voice brittle with restrained sorrow, "except a chance to save our boy." The air was sharp with the raw edge of parental desperation, a sentiment Sophia knew all too well. A silent accord was struck in those harrowing moments, filled with shared anguish and a mutual recognition of each other's torment. It wasn't just about biological ties or legal rights, it was about the undeniable bond of love that had unknowingly linked their lives through the boys they cherished. As they navigated this precarious new reality, Sophia held Michael closer, whispering promises of unwavering love, no matter the names listed on his birth certificate. For her, Michael would always be her son, and she would fight with every breath to keep their world intact, united by a love profound enough to transcend the confines of DNA. In the hushed light of the early evening, two families sat across from each other, their faces a complex tapestry of hope, fear, and tentative resolve. In the center of the room, the table bore not only cups of untouched coffee but the weight of impending decisions that could forever alter the lives entwined around it. Sophia's hands trembled slightly as she clasped them tightly in her lap, her eyes never leaving Michael's face. He sat quietly beside her, his young features set in a serious expression far beyond his years. Across from them, Tyler and his parents shared similar expressions of apprehensive expectation. The air was thick with the unsaid, every breath a silent plea for understanding. "Thank you for coming," Sophia began, her voice steadier than she felt. "I think we all understand why we're here, but not one of us could have ever anticipated something like this happening." Tyler's mother nodded, her eyes glistening with unshed tears. "We can't turn back time," she said, her voice breaking with emotion. "But we're here to do right by our boys. They deserve that much." The conversation that followed was a delicate dance of words, with each sentence carefully chosen to bridge the chasm of the unknown that lay between them. Questions of identity, belonging, and connection were gently unpacked, revealing raw, tender truths that needed airing. Sophia reached across the table, her hand hesitating in midair before settling on Tyler's father's forearm. "Whatever we decide," she said, her voice thick with emotion, "I hope we choose it out of love. Because these boys," she glanced at Michael and Tyler, "they've taught us that family isn't just about blood. It's about who we choose to love and how we support each other." A collective breath seemed to be released in the room. Eyes met, not with the uncertainty and fear that had initially filled them, but with a dawning recognition of shared purpose. Here, in this moment, they were no longer two separate families divided by a painful revelation, but one extended family, bound by the profound love for their children. The meeting ended not with a goodbye but with a promise to move forward together, embracing the complexities of their shared journey with courage and unconditional love. Each parent hugged their child a little tighter that night, grateful for the unexpected paths that had brought them all together. From the moment Sophia witnessed Michael and Tyler's hesitant handshake, a friendship forged by unusual circumstances yet bound by an invisible thread of shared destiny, she knew their lives were entwined forever. This chapter in their lives was not merely about adjustment, it was about transformation, of strangers into family, of solitude into solidarity. It was during Michael's 14th birthday, a joint celebration with Tyler, that Sophia saw the true depth of their bond. The boys, who once lived worlds apart, now laughed together, their camaraderie evident in their easy smiles and shared whispers. The backyard was adorned with streamers and balloons, a festive scene under the soft glow of twilight. As Sophia watched them, her heart swelled with a complex blend of joy and sorrow. She knew this scene was what she had fought for, yet the pathos of what might have been lingered like a silent shadow at the edge of the light. During the party, as the cake was being cut, a moment of pure emotion unfolded. Tyler's mother, Elaine, stepped forward, her eyes glistening with unshed tears, and hugged Sophia tightly. "Thank you," she whispered, her voice thick with emotion. for loving him as your own before you even knew us." Sophia, caught off guard by the raw honesty of the moment, felt her own tears well up. In that embrace, laden with gratitude and understanding, the barriers of yours and mine seemed to melt away. As the evening drew to a close, Michael and Tyler stood side by side, watching the stars emerge. "You know," Michael's voice broke through the quiet, "this is more than I ever hoped for. It's like having two families who care, not just one." Tyler nodded, his voice a soft echo. "Yeah, it's like being a part of something bigger than all of us." Sophia, observing from the porch, realized that while the road they traveled was fraught with unexpected turns, it led them to a place of profound love and acceptance. The families, once strangers, now shared something far greater than DNA. They shared their lives, their hopes, and a resilient, unbreakable bond. In the quiet twilight, Sophia and Michael sat side by side on the porch swing, their legs brushing lightly as they pushed against the cool breeze. The dim porch light cast long shadows behind them, intertwining like the lives they led, complex and inseparable. This was their place of reflection, where the weight of the world seemed just a little lighter as they shared their thoughts. "Sophia," Michael began, his voice quivering with the vulnerability of a child yet to fully grasp the world's harsh realities, "why did they leave me? Wasn't I wanted?" The question, raw and honest, pierced Sophia's heart. She had anticipated this moment, yet felt every preparation crumble under the weight of Michael's earnest eyes. She took his hand, feeling the tremor of his fears mingling with her own. "Michael, love, you were always wanted," she whispered, squeezing his hand as a tear escaped her control. "Sometimes life is like this old swing, unpredictable, moving in directions we can't always control. But no matter where it swings, I want you to know, you always have a place right here with me." Michael looked up, his eyes searching hers for the unspoken truths that lay buried beneath years of protective love. "But you're not my real mom, are they going to take me away?" The fear of loss, a specter that had haunted them both since the revelation, hung heavy in the air. Sophia leaned closer, her resolve firm. "No one is taking you from me, Michael. You are my son, in every way that truly counts. These bonds we've built, they're made of love, not blood. And love, Michael, is what makes a family real." They sat together, the night growing deeper around them as Sophia held Michael close. In her embrace, the fears of the day began to dissolve, replaced by a quiet strength that promised no matter what came their way, they would face it together, as a family defined not by genetics, but by the unbreakable bonds of love. In the quiet moments of twilight, the echoes of laughter drifted from the backyard, where Michael and Tyler, now 17, stood shoulder to shoulder, their friendship a testament to the intricate tapestry of their shared history. This evening was poignant. Michael was preparing for his move to college, and the air was thick with nostalgia and the bittersweet tang of impending change. The yard was drenched in golden hues, casting long shadows over the two boys as they tossed a football back and forth, their conversation meandering through memories of childhood antics and shared family vacations. Sophia watched from the kitchen window, her heart swelling with pride yet aching with the inevitable sorrow of farewell. She had seen Michael grow from a quiet, uncertain boy into a confident young man, his laughter now deep and sure, his demeanor reflective of the love and security she had enveloped him in. As she stepped outside, the cool breeze mingled with the scent of freshly cut grass, bringing with it a flood of memories, school plays, scraped knees, late-night talks about fears and dreams, and quiet mornings preparing breakfast together. Each memory was a brushstroke in the vibrant painting of their lives together. Now, as Michael packed boxes, each item seemed to hold a story, a moment, or a lesson that had shaped him. "Mom," Michael called, using the title that had always meant the world to Sophia, though no blood bond connected them. "Do you remember the first day you brought me here?" His voice cracked slightly, heavy with emotion. Sophia nodded, her eyes glistening. "How could I forget?" she replied, her voice thick. "You were so small, and your eyes were so wide. I was terrified of letting you down." "You never did," he said firmly, pulling her into a hug that spoke of years of gratitude and love. "Not once." In that embrace, Sophia felt the weight and warmth of all the years, the challenges they had faced, and the love they had cultivated. It was a poignant reminder that family isn't defined by genetics, but by the bonds forged in the heart's deepest chambers. As the sun dipped below the horizon, their silhouettes blurred into one, a symbol of an unbreakable bond formed not by fate but by choice, a choice made every single day to love, support, and cherish. In the soft glow of the sunset, Sophia stood silently at the back porch, her eyes tracing the horizon where the sky met the sea, a vast expanse of water that seemed to hold all the mysteries of the world, just like the depths of family ties she had come to understand. Tonight was more than just an evening, it was the eve of Michael's high school graduation, an event that marked not just his achievements but the intertwined lives of two families forever changed by fate. As guests arrived, the backyard buzzed with laughter and the clinking of glasses, yet Sophia's mind was adrift in memories. She watched Michael, now almost a man, adjusting his graduation cap, his eyes alight with excitement and nervous anticipation. Nearby, Tyler shared a joke with his parents, their laughter ringing clear and true, a testament to the unshakable bond they all shared. It was a scene filled with so much joy and normalcy, yet Sophia knew the undercurrents of their journey were anything but ordinary. Turning her gaze towards the garden, she remembered the countless afternoons she spent there with Michael, planting flowers that were supposed to teach him about growth and nurturing. Each petal and leaf was a lesson in resilience and care, mirroring the very lessons she had imparted upon him about life's unpredictable nature. As the sky turned a deeper shade of orange, Sophia felt a gentle hand on her shoulder. It was Michael, his smile wide and encompassing. "Mom, are you okay?" he asked, his voice a mix of concern and love. Sophia's eyes welled up, not out of sadness, but overwhelming gratitude. "I'm more than okay," she replied, her voice thick with emotion. "I'm proud. Proud of you, proud of us." Together, they turned to join the others, their hands linked, a symbol of their unbreakable bond. As they walked, Sophia knew that home wasn't a place, but wherever the heart found peace and acceptance. Tonight, her heart was full, overflowing with love for her son, their family, and the journey that had brought them all together.